Okay, so welcome back to the channel. It has been forever since I made another video, but that's not important. What is important is today we're going to be reviewing this 2004 Cadillac Cts-V. Alright, so we are back. We are focusing on this 2004 Cadillac Cts-V. You know, these Cadillacs, they've been out obviously for a while. This is the first gen. You guys saw my review on the second gen Cts-V, which I was kind of disappointed by. You know, that was one of my attainable dream cars, daily cars, whatever you want to call it, for a while. And it just, you know, my expectations were kind of high, and the car just, I don't want to say disappointed, but it didn't do as well as I thought it would. So this being the first gen, I actually never liked these cars. You know, visually they're not that great. I mean, they differ a little bit from the base model CTS. They got a different front bumper, they have wheels, obviously they have Brembos, but overall, you know, the car doesn't look crazy different compared to the base model CTS. The cool thing is these are all 6-speed manual, so you don't have to go hunting for a manual Cts-V because all of these are manual. And we know today's dying breed of cars, you know, it gets harder and harder to find manual, so it's nice to have that. I'm not going to bore you guys with the specs in the car, the details, all that stuff that you could easily Google. You know, it's a 400 horsepower 6-speed manual car, rear-wheel drive. That's all the specs I'm going to tell you. But let's go for a drive, see how I like it, and we'll go from there. All right, so we are in the Cts-V, and let's get on the way. So I don't know if you guys can hear this radio, DVD player, whatever you want to call it. 30 seconds or so, it makes that annoying sound like it's trying to rotate the CD with like a CD changer. There's nothing in there, which I'll touch more on that issue later, but let's pull out on the street, drive this thing a little bit for what it's known for, which is torque, which is every GM V8. Sure moves. You know, it's not your average car. You can definitely tell it's a V right off the bat. Suspension is pretty good. It's not too stiff, not too soft. It's actually quite nice for daily use. There is some roll, a little bit, you know, there's body roll when you start tracking it, or hard corners, but for daily use, it's actually quite comfortable. I don't know if you guys can pick it up on the camera, but my big gripe with the second gen Cts-V, one of the big gripes, I guess, which is a small gripe, all things considered, but the exhaust, you couldn't hear anything on the V2. I don't know if it was the exhaust or the insulation or what on those cars, but with this thing, you definitely have engine noise. You could hear your motor. It's nice. It's nice to be able to hear it. It's responsive. So I like that a lot. Off the bat, like I said, you know, I've done the V2 CTS, you know, the Cts-V V2, the Corvette review, so this is obviously going to be a similar car. I never cared for these cars. I never liked them. About 10 years ago, I considered buying one. But back then, Evo prices were cheap. I got an Evo instead and really never looked at these again. So I was never really a big fan of them. But I must say, how I told you guys, the V2 for me was the car to have, you know, the daily. It looked so good and it made the power. But I just didn't connect with it. It wasn't that much fun for me. This car is way more fun. It is it reacts to you. It is definitely more of a driver's car. Now, it's not... Don't get me wrong, this is not an S1000, this is, you know, nothing like that. You can still feel the weight, but it is way more nimble than a V2. this being a manual, you know, there's a lot more just driver feedback from the car. It's not as boring to drive. You know, I enjoy it a lot more than a second gen Cts-V. So driving wise, I'm actually pretty happy with this car. Unfortunately, everything else is just garbage. I mean, the build quality is one of the worst cars I've had. The seats are decent. I'll give, you know, the seats themselves they're not bad. I've had to reupholster this one. You know, this car has 140,000 miles, and it's not high miles by any means of cars that I've had. You know, I've had the Corvette, I've had, you know, all my Lexus, Toyota cars have had tons of miles. My old MR2 had 2-something, and this car just has more issues, or had more issues than a lot of other cars. So I don't know if you guys could tell in the video, but there's this mound that holds the radio control. When I got the car, that was cracked. It was completely destroyed. Just from the sun, the plastic is very hard on these cars, so over the years, it gets very brittle. Any pressure will crack it. This door panels are all cracked as well. This is very foamy. It's kind of soft when you press on it, but with heat, when it dries out, it gets hard and brittle, and it'll either crack or it'll tear. Like I mentioned, the seat had to get redone. This radio is all distorted, and a lot of these issues are common. It's not specific to this car that this car's a piece of shit. I mean, I've had to do quite a bit of maintenance on this. You know, oil pressure sensor, brake master cylinder, rear diff mount, you know, just regular oxygen, just stuff like that. Stuff that you expect. I'm not counting that stuff. But I don't expect a 15-year-old, 100,000 mile car to need me to revamp the whole interior. That's really poor build quality. Another thing, so I had a sunroof issue with this car. The sunroof didn't work properly, it gets stuck halfway, but I didn't care. Like, who's gonna really use a sunroof? I was gonna sell it as is. But then it was also leaking. I believe the drains were clogged. So, and I couldn't get to the drains because the sunroof wouldn't really open properly. It would kind of open an inch and that's it. So I had to take the whole assembly down. To take the whole assembly down, you have to pull the headliner, which I had to do. The really poor build quality really came through when I was taking this thing apart. So my A-pillars and the C-pillars, they're made of plastic. It is extremely hard plastic. This, where the overhead sunroof control switches and the overhead lights, under them, or above them I should say, there's a bracket that holds it in place that gets bolted to the ceiling. Well, that bracket is the same super hard plastic. And any of these parts, this A-pillar, C-pillars, or this part, literally you just touch and it cracks, and it just keeps cracking. It's not like it cracks into 8, 9, 10 pieces. I was trying to glue them to fix them, but really there's no fixing these. I mean, you glue it, you put any pressure on it, cracks again. You know, the A-pillars and the C-pillars, what cracks is where the screw goes into that holds it in place. That plastic's super brittle, so you apply any pressure with the screw and you just hear it crack. This piece was a massive headache to replace because every single one of the junkyard that I found, when I went to pull it off the car, it would crack. And the reason why that was because they, on top of screwing them, they ran wires through it and they glued the wires in place. So when you go to pull it, the wires kind of make, you know, there's tension and the plastic is so brittle it cracks. So I cracked like 3 of them at the junkyard. I tried to order a new one at GM, super cheap, like $30, but discontinued, so you can't even get one. So what I ended up doing, the way I ended up pulling a good one without breaking in the junkyard, is I literally had to cut the headliner out. I just cut a big hole in it and then carefully took it off, because if you try to get that piece off with the headliner in place, it just cracks because the wires kind of pull it back, you're dropping the headliner and the plastic just snaps. So it's been a headache. You guys could probably keep hearing that radio noise. I mean, like I said, the build quality is awful. reliability, overall a good car. You're gonna have some issues, you know, older car radiators, stuff like that, sensors going bad, you know, with GM. And I've always told these people, if you're gonna buy a General Motors car, make sure it's a V8, because they know how to build their V8s, and they know that, you know, the T56 6-speed in this car is really strong. It is a very poorly built car. Everything just feels super cheap. You know, my taillights from the heat, they have minor stress cracks, and I went to try to find ones at the junkyard just to replace them, and all the lenses, the full lens, like the red clear lens, is missing on all of them. And it's not like, oh, somebody destroyed them at the junkyard. It is extremely common for that to happen on regular CTSs or the Vs. So, really poor build quality aside, it's not a bad car. What I wish was different with this car is there was more V characteristics. And what I mean by that is distinguishing features for this car. Now, going back a little bit to the poor build quality, the good thing about it is a lot of the shit interchanges with the base model CTS, which are everywhere in every junkyard in the country because they're complete turds. So there is a good thing from the poor build qualities. If you need the parts, most of them interchange, so, you know, kind of have your ass covered, but that's a different point. But like I was saying, I wish they did more to make these cars look different. You know, the bumper and the wheels, yeah, they're different. Those are little minor things. I mean, you know, the hood could have been different, the fenders, everything is the same as the base model. It just blends in too much. The styling is very boring. Literally, if you take away the front bumper, this car is a base model CTS styling wise, you know, the wheels and the brakes obviously, but I wish they did more V features. Same thing on the inside. I don't know if the factory ones, I think the factory ones have the option for the Alcantara too. But these seats, like, you know, they have Alcantara and the suede in the middle, but it's kind of shitty quality. It has good driving characteristics, got good braking, good acceleration, like I said, plenty of torque. So overall, it is a good car. Definitely moves, but you know, the car handles, it moves. It's a decent car. For the money, it's actually a good car, I should say. Just styling and reliability. You know, reliability is not bad. Just a lot of stupid shit that goes wrong. It's not really a mechanical reliability. It's more of everything around the mechanical reliability. So, you know, the sensors, the switches, like I said, the sunroof assembly, just minor things. Now, engine overall pretty good. LS6, I think the later years had the LS2, pretty much the same engine, you know, right around 400 horsepower, 6-speed manual, pretty strong, you know, really got to put some power to destroy them. So it's a good car. If you guys are in the market for a 10 grand car, rear-wheel drive manual, not much else comes to mind right now, honestly. I don't even know, you know, nowadays WXs are more, and those are all-wheel drive, and they make way less power than this, and way less reliable, but they're put together definitely nicer than this car. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll be doing more videos. You know, I've been slacking a lot, so now it's cooling down in Florida. I'm able to actually film and do whatever I need to do outside without sweating my ass off. So yeah, you guys will be seeing a lot more reviews soon.